Good morning. Good morning. I don't know why I did it like that, but here we are. I'm Joshua Pearsall with Practical Christian Lessons. We are not going to be doing a read-through of Jacob Arminius or a theology video today. We're going to be reading through the Apocrypha this Monday. There's a change in our normal schedule for anyone who's unaware. And that is because this week I want to finish out the Wisdom of Sirach reading so we can start next week and just have the start of our Wesleyan series and just get right into the 25 articles. I do believe, however, yes, next Saturday, and I'll have a community post later with the exact time. We're going to be doing a live stream as well, so be sure to check that out. I believe we're going to be actually doing our first video in the Wesleyan series as a live on Saturday, and I'll try and find out how to do a local recording at the same time in order to actually have it on the videos as well, because I know some people are going to want to see that and won't necessarily check the lives for it, but it'll be there. And then next Monday will be our Jacob Arminius reading for anyone who was looking for that. But that is our plan for this, and we are getting into Wisdom of Sirach 46 today. Joshua and Caleb. It is me and my twin brothers' names, named after the same two individuals. Clearly, I think Joshua is better. I'm a little biased. Mighty in battle was Joshua the son of Nun, and successor to Moses in prophecies. He became, in accordance with his name, a great savior of God's chosen ones, to punish the enemies who rose up against them, that he might give Israel its inheritance. How glorious he was when he lifted up his hands and stretched out his sword against the cities. Who stood so firm before him? For he led the wars for the Lord. Was not the sun held back by his hand, and one day became as two? He called upon the Most High, the Lord, when enemies oppressed him from all sides. Then the great Lord answered him with hailstones of mighty power. He shattered that nation with war, and at the descent of Beth-horon he destroyed his opponents, so the nations might know his full armor, that he fought his battle in the sight of the Lord. For indeed he followed behind the Lord. Even in the days of Moses he showed mercy. He and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, they withstood the assembly to prevent the people from sinning and to stop their evil murmuring. Indeed, these two alone were preserved from the 6,000 on foot, to lead them into an inheritance, into a land flowing with milk and honey. The Lord gave Caleb strength, and remained with him until old age. For he went up to the hill country, and his seed took it as an inheritance, so all the children of Israel might know that it is good to follow the Lord. The judges also, each by his name, those whose heart did not fall into idolatry, and whoever did not turn away from the Lord, may their memory be blessed. May their bones revive from their place, and may the name of those honored live again in their sons. The prophet of the Lord, Samuel, beloved by his Lord, established a kingdom and anointed rulers for his people. He judged the assembly by the law of the Lord, and the Lord watched over Jacob. By his faithfulness he proved to be a true prophet, and by his words he was known to be faithful in vision. Thus he called upon the Lord, the Mighty One, when enemies troubled him on every side. And when he offered a young lamb, then the Lord thundered from heaven, and with a great sound made his voice heard. He destroyed the leaders of the Tyrians, and all the rulers of the Philistines. And before the time of his sleep in perpetuity, Samuel called men to witness before the Lord and his anointed. I have not taken any man's possessions, even to my sandals. Indeed, no man brought any charges against him. Even after he fell asleep, he prophesied, and showed the king his end, and raised up his voice out of the earth with a prophecy to wipe away the lawlessness of the people. And that's Wisdom of Sirach 46. Sorry, I thought I had something in my arm. I was pulling up carpet earlier today, so I've still gotten a few little bits that seem to have gone through the close. But clearly the author has moved into this, in these last few chapters and the next until 50, I believe it was, he'll be moving through not only the individuals that he's talking about, Joshua and Caleb, the judges, Samuel, and before that, Moses and Aaron. He's also using this as sort of like a history. I think that's pretty clear. He's like walking through the history of Israel right now, through their great saints specifically. Our great saints, not our great saints. And it's always great to reflect on these stories. And some of them, of course, I'm sure a lot of us have heard a lot about over the years. I'm sure many of us are, when going through the story of David, hear about Samuel and Solomon. Joshua and Caleb I don't hear as much about, but two great figures that definitely are worth contemplating on a lot as well. The judges definitely don't get a lot of attention, but each of these, not only these people and individuals that we'll meet someday, but the stories that they are telling, and in the scriptures that have been preserved for us, and that the author of Jesus ben Sirach in this case is talking about here in the wisdom of Sirach, is sort of a way, as David does in the Psalms, right? Great art, like I cherish your saints, is a way to look at the saints that have come before us and look at how God has used them and use them as models for how we live our lives. Clearly, in the case of the judges, some were better than others, but all are most definitely examples of faith in some sense, and leaning on the Lord in some capacity. I think Josh and Caleb's example is great, and definitely something we could use in our current day and age, where it's growing less and less friendly to be so openly Christian at times. In certain places, some places it's like, where I live in Oklahoma, it's not a problem. Other places, it's becoming less and less common for people to be so publicly Christian, whereas here it's on bumper stickers and all over office windows and stuff. Still, there's still post boards up everywhere. Not post boards, roadside boards. I mean, I forget the names of things all the time, and they're terrible when it happens in the videos because it's going to be on the internet forever. Billboards, there we go, billboards. And it's very different here, but they're a great example of not only that we should, no matter what the situation is, all right, rely on the Lord and trust on the Lord and do as the Lord would have us do, even in the case of something fearsome, right? And they're about to talk about David, but David in the face of Goliath did the same thing. He's like, this Goliath, yeah, he's a big guy. Who is he in the face of the Lord? Who is, in the case of Joshua and Caleb, who are these giants in the face of the Lord? What are they going to do? We have the Lord on our side. They can't stop us. No one can stop us. But the other 10 scouts that went with them and the tribes of Israel were too fearful. But they were the example of what we should do, even when everyone else is saying do the opposite. And that's probably something a lot of us have heard over the years. But I think it's worth looking at specific characters and trying to think on how we can reflect on those individuals expressed through the scriptures and the stories they tell us, and be like, how can we model after them, right? And same with saints all throughout church history, right? As Paul said, do as I do toward, like, to imitate the Lord. Don't, right? Do as I do, so far as I'm imitating the Lord, right? Use the saints as models of holiness and righteousness, and those that God has clearly transformed and changed, and be like, all right, these are people that have shown us how to model a life after the Lord. How can we follow after that modeling? What did they do that we can do? What did they think that we can think? On and on. And I think that's something we really do need a big focus on here, in at least in the modern Western church. I think that's a huge focus, and not just on the saints in the scriptures or right here, some that'll appear in the Apocrypha and such, but saints in our own history. I can't remember who said it, but a man who doesn't know his own history has amnesia, as the way he put it, is something along those lines. Has no identity. If you don't know your own history, you don't know who you are. Let alone if you don't know who your own group's history, the church's history. And there's a frightful lack of knowledge on, right? Jesus and the apostles, we know a lot about them. A lot of people tend to know a lot about them. Everyone between them and, like, say, Martin Luther, there's a large gap of knowledge there. And even post Martin Luther, some of the Reformation figures specifically get a lot of attention because of how huge that was for human history. But then, like, what about the next 300-400 years after them? Not nearly as much attention. And I think that's something we need to improve on here in the Western Church. And I think that these next chapters are going to be a great way as a practice and an exercise to do exactly that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that over the rest of this week, and I'm excited to start next week's series as well. God bless.